live at the Yard here in the North Fayette Robinson area. It is the Andy Toole Radio Show, live every Monday night from the Yard from 7 until 8 here on ESPN Pittsburgh and the iHeartRadio app, keyword RMU. Good to have you aboard with us tonight as the Colonials enter tournament time. Yep, it's March and the madness has already begun. Colonials concluded their 2018-19 regular season Saturday with a 69-60 victory over Wagner. The Colonials ended the regular season with an overall record of 16-15, including 11-7 in the Northeast Conference. And Coach Toole, an amazing finish to this basketball season, the regular season, as the Colonials shot 60.9%. They were 14 of 23 from the field in the second half at Wagner and erased an 8-point halftime deficit to pull out the victory. The come-from-behind Colonials were at it again this past weekend on Staten Island.
Yeah, I don't know if that's real good for my health, but obviously it's kind of been a little bit of who we've become. 3 of our last 4 wins, we've been down at the half and have been able to come back, and proud of the resiliency guys have shown. We talked a little bit about maybe not trying to put ourselves in a hole or a deficit at halftime, because really, 3 of the last 4 have been deficits of 8 or greater, and so it just makes it that much more difficult when you got to fight your way back in. And I think we try to remind them that as we come into conference play here, you don't get any redos, and so every possession is going to be critical. Every defensive stop, every offensive execution is going to be critical here. But I thought our guys really played excellently in the second half at Wagner. Obviously a tough place to play, a tough place to win, and a team that has been known over the years for their toughness and their defensive prowess. Wagner, this year's group's no different, and so for us to be able to shoot the way we shot and really get the quality of shot that we got, I thought that was really the most impressive thing. Is we were able to get such quality shots. Guys were able to step up and make good reads. I thought at halftime we talked about our decisions seeming to be just slightly off and a little bit slow, and in the second half our decisions were right on time.
Yeah, they truly were. And as far as scoring was concerned, the Williams brothers led the way with a combined 26 points. Josh had 14, John had 12, and Josh really didn't start hitting until the second half after he got hit in the cheek.
Yeah, and I was glad that he continued to shoot. We've talked to him during the course of the year about continuing to stay aggressive offensively, hunting shots, areas where when he's coming off certain screening actions, being able to really anticipate, hey, I'm going to shoot this ball unless the defense tells me not to. And he missed a couple really good looks in the beginning of the game, and I was really glad that he continued to shoot and made 2 big threes, in the second half for us, as well as some nice drives and some nice assists. So, he was excellent. And then, I thought it might have been John's most complete and best game of the year. 12 points, 8 assists, 0 turnovers, and he had a focus and a determination about him on Saturday that he's got a bottle and bring, every day that we get to put our jerseys on here for the rest of the year, because, I thought he was really locked in, really engaged with his teammates, making excellent decisions, but being aggressive while doing that. I think at times this year, we've challenged him to be more aggressive, and, I thought he really did a nice job of that on Saturday.
Even more impressive was the fact that Wagner kept pressing you during the ball game. They were turning it off, turning it on, and for a lot of that ball game, they were pressing you in the full court, and it's up to the guards to get the ball up the floor.
It is, and I thought in the first half we had some foolish turnovers. We had 10 turnovers in the first half. We only had 4 in the second, and I thought our guys really, handled it well. And 2 of those turnovers, kind of came late in that half when we had seized control of the game. So it was good to see that we were, increased our level of focus and urgency with the basketball, because, I think anytime, and we've seen it throughout our season this year, when we've robbed ourselves of possessions, it's really cost us. And, teams do a good job of taking those opportunities and turning them into points. That's certainly hurt us in a few games during the course of this year. The St. Francis game, probably the biggest, case in point, both those games where we turned it over and it really cost us. So it was nice to see us with that kind of focus. And Wednesday against St. Francis Brooklyn, turnovers will be key. Can we protect the ball? Can we get good shots? Can we play efficient offense?
I'm glad you mentioned St. Francis Brooklyn, because Wednesday night is the opening night of the Northeast Conference conference tournament. And you welcome the Terriers from Brooklyn in for that ball game. They're 17-14 overall, 9-9 in the NEC. They're the 5th seed. You're the 4th seed, as Robert Morris will open up the playoffs at home in the North Athletic Complex.
It'll be great to have a home game. Obviously, it's what you fight for during the course of the year. We kind of tied for 3rd there with Sacred Heart. Still had a chance to get 3rd, and unfortunately, did not get the tiebreaker. Basically, Sacred Heart beating St. Francis PA on the last day of the regular season was the deciding factor. But we had plenty of opportunities during the course of conference play to really put ourselves in an even better spot. But we are where we are, and we know it comes down to being able to play your best basketball on Wednesday night, and then let all the dust settle and figure out what the next steps might be. But where our focus is strongly on St. Francis. We've had 2 really hard-fought games with them. Obviously the game in New York that we were fortunate enough to win, and then the game here 2 weeks ago where another great second half kind of propelled us to the victory. And so that was kind of our focus. We got together yesterday as a team and went over scout again, went over personnel again, kind of talked about, having an increased focus here as we're now in March and in conference tournament play, and then had a good practice today. So, I think our guys are excited. They know the challenge that's in front of them, and I think they're looking forward to it, because this is what you do all the work for. This is what you do all the summer workouts for, and the lifts and the conditioning, so you can be able to compete at this point in the year. And not everyone gets to put their jersey on. I reminded the guys yesterday, and as we go through these next couple days, there'll be more and more teams that are going to be shutting it down for the year. And so if you still get to come to practice and you still get to put that jersey on and you still have a game in front of you, you want to make sure that you're trying to take full advantage of it.
Which leads me to believe that you shouldn't really have to say too much, should you?
You hope not, and I haven't really had to here in the last couple days. Kind of set the stage for some of our guys, some of our older guys, to kind of just communicate what's going on and how you need to proceed. And obviously we had a number of guys that were in the conference tournament last year who were part of an upset, a 7-2 upset on the road. And John Williams and Charles Bain and Chris Coleman and Kobe Thomas, they were freshmen in that environment last year, and I think got an understanding of what conference play is about. Had to go on the road to the 1 seed at Wagner last year, and just didn't have enough at the end of the day. But hopefully that experience gives them some understanding. Maddie, who's been in part of the last 2 years, a 7-2 upset and then a semifinal, tough semifinal loss. Hopefully his urgency clock is ticking rapidly, and he's relaying the guys, our Dante Treacy's and our Cam Wilbons and our Giannis Mendes and our Savion McEwen, some of the new guys, just how critical your preparation has to be and how urgent you have to be at all times. And I would assume that message is getting passed along throughout the locker room.
Maybe Matty can find some inspiration in his sister Megan and his dad Tim. And congratulations to Chartiers Valley's girls basketball program under Tim McConnell. He won his 7th WPIAL gold medal as a head coach at now the girls level and boys combined, 6 on the boys side, 1 on the girls side. And Megan won her 2nd WPIAL title this weekend.
Yeah, it's really cool, isn't it? I mean, I think, and they're undefeated. I think they're 25-0 at this point. And how cool is it for Tim to be able to coach all 3 of his kids, to a WPIAL championship? I mean, that's storybook stuff. I'm not sure Ryan and Colin want me coaching them to anything, but maybe they might not have a choice at some point in time. Who knows? But really neat experience for the McConnell family, and it's amazing all the success they've had.
This is the Andy Toole Radio Show. We're live at the Yard here in North Fayette Robinson in the Pool City Plaza just across from Target. I'm Chris Shovlin with head coach Andy Toole, and we're going to stick around until 8 o'clock on the World Wide Web tonight. We're going to replay this show on the radio side this evening because Phil Bork's on ESPN right now talking Penguins hockey. So you're going to hear us twice if you're listening in on the web and you want to tune in on the radio a little bit later. Anyway, back to the game against Wagner this this past weekend. Again, the Colonials coming from an 8-point deficit, coming from behind to win that ball game. Nigel Jackson gave the Seahawks a 37-32 lead with a layup with 13:53 to play. But then Robert Morris went on a run. You scored 13 consecutive points to jump in front, 45-37. It was Josh Williams who ignited the surge. He knocked down 3-pointers on consecutive possessions. That pushed Robert Morris in front, while his brother, sophomore guard John Williams, added one of his own. Those guys came to life. You got 10 points apiece from Yanis Mendy and Charles Bain on the inside as well.
Yeah, I think Yanis did a great job in the game Saturday, and kind of got us off to a good start, and then we went to him a couple times there in the second half, and I just I said to him, it's sometimes hard because he was playing so well offensively that they went to a smaller lineup almost to try and create a mismatch on the other end, and we kind of had to counter with that. We kind of finished with a smaller lineup where we were switching a lot more stuff, and it was effective for us in what needed to be done at that point in time. And Yanis, fully understand it, but we wouldn't have been close to winning that game without his performance and his play. I mean, 10 points and 4 rebounds. I thought he was excellent in the game, and in the limited minutes. I mean, limited at 20 minutes. I mean, he could have been out there the way he was playing even longer. But it's constantly trying to find that mismatch, constantly trying to find that opportunity to make plays. And Charles Bain went on a little run of his own. It was almost like different guys kind of had a little stretch of time where they were able to make the right plays and score some buckets for us. And whether it was Yanis to start the second half, and then Josh kind of had his little run, and then Bain had his little run. Chris had his buckets back to back, and Matty and John Williams kind of sprinkled in there. But everybody kind of made the play when it needed to be made, and the ball moved really freely in that second half. And it was nice to see, for example, Charles make a 3, and then the next play be able to shot fake and drive it, and then the next play be able to drive it and get fouled, and just kind of making the right reads that the defense gave you. And that was really, I think, something that was exciting to see for our coaching staff, because it's stuff that we've been talking about all year long. Can you run it and then just make the right read out of it and move it to the open guy, or make the shot or make the drive when it presents itself? And like I said, I don't know if in my time here we've ever shot 60% and a half against Wagner, with the way that they are able to guard and the difficulty they give you offensively. So I think it was a pretty impressive offensive performance for us.
What was amazing, too, is you held them to 18% from the field shooting. Let's talk about the defensive side of that second half of Robert Morris. That was tremendous, D.
It really was. And I think, one of the things that you have to be able to try and do against them is, take away that three-point line. And they were 4 for 27 from 3 in that game. Only made 1 there in that second half. And that was really, critical for us. It was something that we talked about going into the game. Can we make them shoot more 2s? Can we make them, get to the line? And obviously they got to the line a little more than we would have wanted. I mean, Ramon Saunders, who's a really tough matchup because of his ability to make 3s, to post you up, to drive you, to rebound it. He went 10 for 10, but, it was something where I think, those 3-point shots are so critical to their success. And they have a number of guys who that's how they impact the game, is by coming in and making a 3. And we were able to really get them off that line. And I thought it was very, very helpful to us, and allowed us to be able to hold on.
And Coach Toole, what kept them in the game was their free throw shooting too.
Yeah, definitely. Liggins going 6 for 6, and Saunders going 10 for 10, and those guys are good players. Elijah Davis 5 for 7. I mean, between the 3 of those guys, that's 21 free throws made. 21 for 23, and in the game they were only 24 for 27. And so we knew that those guys were going to be guys that because they're involved in so much of their offense, you have to make sure that you're doing a good job of defending without fouling. And I thought the game was physically played, but I thought it was really pretty balanced in terms of advantage, disadvantage. It was if that offensive player used his physicality to gain some type of advantage, it was called, and if he didn't, we were allowed to play on, and I thought that was key.
And don't forget, that's keyword RMU. We're live at the Yard tonight. It's the Andy Toole Radio Show, as we are here every Monday night at the Yard in North Bay at Robinson, in the Pool City Plaza, just across from Target. Don't forget, at the bottom of the hour, which is less than 15 minutes from now, we have our ever-popular Toole Off the Court segment. If you have a question for Coach Toole about anything except basketball, you're invited to tweet us that question at the hashtag AskToole. Toole. Again, hashtag ASKTOOLE. Toole off the court coming up at the bottom of the hour right here on ESPN Pittsburgh. Let's get back onto the court right now and talk about Robert Morris basketball. Coach, I know that you have a playoff game opening up this coming Wednesday night, and we do understand the students at Robert Morris University are on break, and I realize we're playing in a small building right now. The temporary home is the North Athletic Complex. What's the chance of getting a ticket?
I think there's actually some tickets available, and obviously during the course of this year they were not doing day-of-game ticket sales, but if there's any way, whoever's listening, we can start to spread that word that there are going to be tickets available day of game. I know that they have some student tickets allotted, but I think that if the students don't show, they're going to sell those. So if we could have a rush on the North Athletic Complex, I'd be completely okay with it. I don't know about the fire marshal and our athletics administration, but the more people we can cram into that building, I think the better. It's served its purpose this year as a really convenient host for us before the UPMC Event Center opens up, later this spring, and before we can get into there this summer and fall. But there are going to be tickets available, and we need everybody to come out. And I think anything we can do to build the home court advantage, I think, would be greatly appreciated. When we had St. Francis and LIU in here 2 weeks ago for our final homestand of the year, I thought we had two really good crowds that helped provide our team with energy, gave us a boost, especially in those second halves, and helped us get to the win. And so I think we'd love that kind of support on Wednesday night.
All right, sounds good. Last time I saw the fire marshal, I think you were playing a team that wore white and blue, but I'm not positive.
Yeah, and he was pretty good to us that night as well.
He was. The fire marshal is our friend, no doubt about it. Let's continue to talk about the end of the regular season. I know things did not go well for you on Thursday night against Sacred Heart, and Sacred Heart ends up in the playoffs as the number 3 seed in the Northeast Conference Tournament. They will play Long Island, by the way, also on Wednesday night. St. Francis of Brooklyn at Robert Morris, as we said. Wagner's going to take on FDU. Wagner's the 7th seed, FDU the number 2 seed, and of course the number 1 seed is St. Francis of Loretto. They're going to be in Loretto this coming Wednesday night against Bryant. But I know that when you played Sacred Heart this past Thursday night, it seemed like from the get-go things just did not go well. And, we saw the Colonials transition on that road trip from maybe playing their worst, at least first half, the worst half of basketball that we've seen them play maybe in a long time. Maybe I'll add another couple of longs. And then they played a tremendous second half against Wagner to finish out the road trip.
Yeah, I still, as I think back to that game Thursday, I'm not really sure, what went wrong. And, unfortunately, that was a team that we had not seen all year long. And we probably played as bad a first half as I can remember since I've been at Robert Morris now. This is the end of my 12th season. I was thinking about it on Thursday night. I couldn't come up with another half where we just seemed so more out of sync. We were just on both ends of the floor. We were just behind at all times. And credit Sacred Heart. They really came out. They were very, very aggressive. They were executing on both sides of the floor, and we provided no resistance. It was something that, and we talked about after the game. We talked about when we got to Staten Island, and I think we all decided that aliens invaded everyone's bodies because we really couldn't come up with why and how it happened. And unfortunately, at this point in the year, those kind of games can certainly hurt you, as we do play for seeding. But I was proud at how we responded at Wagner, even being down at the half. I still thought that we played very hard in that first half, and that was Robert Morris basketball. And then obviously in the second half, I thought we played tremendous. But it's some of those things I think that happen. Unfortunately, if you're going to decide to be a coach in your life, that you're going to have performances where you just scratch your head, and that certainly was one on Thursday night. And like I said, credit Sacred Heart and the way that they were prepared and how they performed, because they were excellent on Thursday. They were excellent on Saturday. I mean, they beat St. Francis PA on Saturday, and they're a really tough team to beat at Sacred Heart. And again, it was maybe a good reminder to have that if you don't prepare properly or you don't show up and perform the way you're capable of, this can be over real quick. And that should be fresh in people's minds, and hopefully maybe it can be something that can help propel us as we go into the conference tournament.
And that leads me into the conversation that I'd like to have with you about playing your best basketball at this time of the year. Obviously, Sacred Heart is.
Oh, they certainly are. And I think there's a number of teams that are playing very well right now. I think FDU is playing very well right now. Obviously, St. Francis, PA is, rattled off a number, in a row, maybe 7 out of 9 or something like that, to be where they are. And I think, everybody, as we've gone through this whole year, we've talked about, some of the parity within the league. And, even as you look across the board here at some of these quarterfinal matchups, a lot of them were splits, and, I think everybody going into the game is very respectful and cognizant of who their opponent is and however they fared against them the first 2 times, good or bad, they know that there's very little that divides each and every team. And if you don't prepare properly and you don't play correctly and you don't do the things that make you a good team or have allowed you to be successful in the past, you could be in a tough spot, right? And I think that's it's in the forefront of our coaching staff's mind, and I'm sure if you polled the other 7 coaches, they would be thinking along similar lines.
You can even take that down to Central Connecticut State and Mount St. Mary's, who did not make the tournament.
Yeah, and they were, Mount St. Mary's was on the last day of the season was down at the half and came back and won. And I think that those are the kinds of efforts and those are the kinds of situations that we saw all year long in the Northeast Conference, where no lead was safe, no game was taken for granted, and if it was, that team probably didn't fare very well, and each and every possession was hard fought. And I think that's why our league is a fun one to watch if you're a fan, can be exhausting one to be a part of if you're a coach, because you look up and down the line and you don't ever really see games where and it's conference play everywhere, right? I mean, you look from the top all the way down to the bottom. Cal in the Pac-12 beats Washington, and Cal hadn't won any league games until this weekend, and they're going to beat the team that's the regular season champ. None of that stuff seems to make a whole lot of sense, but that's college basketball for you.
That certainly is. And this is the Andy Toole Radio Show. We're talking Robert Morris University basketball here tonight, live at the Yard in North Fayette in the Pool City Plaza. We have a nice crowd in here tonight, and glad that so many of you turned out to listen to the show and to have dinner and some libations here at the Yard, the all-new gastro pub here in the North Fayette area. This is their newest location. Our segment, Toole Off the Court, is coming up right around the corner here. We're going to take a short time out. We do want to remind you, if you have a question for Andy about anything but basketball, we're accepting those on Twitter using the hashtag AskToole. That's AskToole. If you have a question for Coach Toole about anything but basketball, tweet it to us now. Toole Off the Court's coming up. I only have a handful tonight, so let's see what we come up with.
Perfect.
All right. It's the Andy Toole Radio Show, live from the Yard on ESPN Pittsburgh and the iHeartRadio app, keyword RMU. Very pleasant good evening to you once again. We're halfway through the Andy Toole Radio Show here, live at the Yard in North Fayette tonight. I'm Chris Shublin with Coach Toole. We're talking Robert Morris playoff basketball as the Colonials get set to open up the Northeast Conference Tournament against St. Francis of Brooklyn this coming Wednesday night. Should have some tickets available for you if you want to come out to the ball game, and we hope to see you out at the North Athletic Complex. But right now in our radio show, it is that time that we have reached, and we do this each and every week. We have a segment called Toole Off the Court, and during that segment, which is growing by popularity by leaps and bounds.
It's amazing.
It is truly amazing. We ask Andy questions about everything except basketball, so I actually stole this one from the Today Show yesterday morning. I very rarely...
Willie Geist?
Willie Geist was on yesterday morning, okay?
He does Sundays with Today.
He does Sundays. Were you watching yesterday?
On and off. It was on TV, but I don't know how much I was paying attention to it.
Okay. Well, we got back pretty late from Wagner on Saturday night, but I was up and I was watching, and Willie Geist does a heck of a job on Sundays.
He does. I was up, but I think I was playing Uno or Zingo or some other game of nonsense that
one of the guys
partakes on Sunday. Yeah, it's usually our Sunday morning.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Well, frankly, I'm a Good Morning America guy, so I watch that from 7 until 8, but then I switch over as soon as
nice.
And I watch Channel 4 a lot, to be honest with you. Okay. But I go over to NBC. Willie Geist is on Sunday mornings because I already saw the news 3 times. Anyway, bottom line is Willie Geist had a question posted up there, and they had a long conversation about this. When it comes to roasting marshmallows, do you just stick the marshmallow into the fire and let it catch fire, or do you lightly twist and turn it until it's a golden brown?
Golden brown. Lightly twist and turn it until it's golden brown. I don't want my marshmallow to be burned and charred. And so I kind of keep it away from the flame a little bit, close enough to be able to brown it. I have some patience when it comes to my marshmallows. I'm not just going to throw it into the flame and let it catch fire and then try and shake it off and see what happens. So I'm all about golden brown marshmallows.
Like dark golden brown or like light golden brown?
Light, on the lighter side. Okay. I don't really like it to be, too burnt. I like to enjoy some of the marshmallow more than just the campfire.
Just the skin.
Yeah,
okay, yeah, I gotcha. All right, when's the last time you had one?
Oh, last summer.
Oh, okay. At the beach?
No, not at the beach. We were at some friend's house. They have a fire pit, and so we did some s'mores, and it was entertaining to say the least. We lost a couple marshmallows in the fire. Some of the young kids obviously getting a little bit too close, and all of a sudden it falls off the stick, and now you have a catastrophe on your hands, and you got to load that stick up as quickly as you can and let them know there's more marshmallows. It's going to be all right, guys. We got some more marshmallows.
It'll be fine. No crying. No crying when it comes to marshmallows. Okay. I was saddened at the news today that Luke Perry, the former Beverly Hills 90210 star, had passed away, and this after suffering a stroke late last week. And my understanding was that they were actually talking about doing a Beverly Hills 90210 revival. Now, knowing the demographic group that you're in, I am guessing that you watched that show back in the day. So
big time.
I knew it.
I was a big time 90210 fan. Dylan McKay, obviously Luke Perry's character on the show, was, he was the guy. I mean, he was. I think I started watching it probably in 5th, 6th grade. Would have had to be like 1990, 1991, something like that. I think when it kind of came out, and then when he left the show for a couple years, that was troubling. But then he came right back. He wasn't gone for long. But
the show wasn't the same.
It wasn't. But I was a huge 90210 fan, and Steve Sanders, and everybody that was part of the show. Emily Valentine, when she came on the show, caused a lot of trouble.
Oh, she did.
Yeah, and then Melrose Place came on right after it. So we had in the Toole household, we what was that, Thursday night, 8 to 9, and then 9 to 10 maybe, or was it 9 to 10 and 10 to 11? Was that?
I think it was earlier. Yeah.
Tuesday, or maybe it was Wednesday. Tuesday or Wednesday.
I can't remember.
Wednesday.
It was
Wednesday night.
Thanks. Gary Meyer knows this too.
We were locked in at that point in time. Everyone was, couldn't miss an episode of 90210. So it was a show that I think a lot of guys a lot of people that are my age, mid to late 30s, early 40s, kind of grew up on.
Sure. Okay. The reason I brought that up was obviously because of Luke Perry's passing. We're so sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
But with that said, and with your testimony there, Brenda or Kelly, who were you crazier for? Shannon Doherty or Jenny Garth?
Jenny Garth.
Okay.
Jenny Garth. I was never a big Shannon Doherty fan. Actually, I thought the show got a little bit better the less that it focused on her.
Okay.
To be honest with you. So Jenny Garth all the way.
Okay. Got you there. Boy, that was a long night.
Tori Spelling.
Tori Spelling, no.
There was too much drama with Tori Spelling.
I didn't even want to go there, so that's fine. See, I watched the show.
David Silver, he was obviously her,
That was Brian Austin Green. Right?
It was, correct.
Yeah. I watched it.
No, really? I didn't notice.
My daughters are the same age as you.
I'm sure.
So I got stuck watching it, but I did get into it.
I wouldn't say stuck.
No, actually, I was entertained by it. I was entertained by it. Anyway, let's move on. Your lowest ever golf score?
Carrie Myers, just her ears just perked up. I think my lowest, I've only actually, my lowest ever is 79. I've only done that twice. I've only broken 80 twice, and majority of my golf scores are probably mid to high 80s. But there was a couple times where I kind of played well and putted well. As they all say, drive for dough.
Sure.
Or drive for show, putt for dough. My putting could improve on the golf course. So 79 is my lowest.
Okay, I don't know if Jerry Dulac's listening back at the studio, but he'd be fascinated by that, I'm sure. How about high bowling score?
I'm glad you asked me that.
First of all, tell me why you're glad.
I'm glad. So there's my household is obviously pretty competitive, and there's a huge debate in our house about when we bowl, who wins, Brooke or I.
Okay.
And Brooke is very competitive from a bowling perspective. I claim that I've won over 50% of the times we've bowled. Ooh. She clearly disagrees with that. The last time we bowled was actually right at Christmas. My sister turned 40. They had a surprise party for her at the bowling alley, and I think I have pictures of those electronic scoreboards. Now, I can't tell you what my high in bowling is. I mean, it might be 180 or something like that. I mean, I'm not a very good bowler by any stretch of the imagination. I wish I could throw a hook. I can't. Absolute straight ball all day long. I'm better than a lot of the guys on our team because a lot of them stink.
Mm-hmm. And you have taken them bowling.
Oh, yeah, we go bowling once or twice a year. Yeah. Gary Wallace actually was one of the best bowlers that we ever had.
Just saw Gary this weekend.
He was at the Wagner game. Yeah. He was an awesome bowler, actually. But yeah, I would say, I don't know, 170, 180 maybe is my high. Like I said, I'm not very good at it, but as long as I'm one pin better than Brooke, all's right in the world.
King of the castle.
Yeah, all's right in the
King of the castle. That's what it's all about.
Good thing the old 2-9er took our slot tonight, because she would be listening. She's probably not going to tune in tomorrow.
Sorry, there's a replay on the radio at 8 o'clock tonight, by the way.
I'll remind her of that.
Okay, very good. Your go-to channel on Sirius XM, and you can't say the E Street channel.
But that's my go-to.
What's the next one down?
I'll give you my 6 presets on
okay.
So it's E Street.
Okay.
Z100.
Yeah.
The Highway.
Okay.
Hits 1. Sirius Fly, channel 47, which is like 90s, 2000 hip hop.
Yeah.
And then my other one is channel 46, Hip Hop Nation.
Okay. All right. Cool. Paper or plastic if you go to the supermarket? I don't even know if they ask that.
You can't even do that anymore.
I think they give you all plastic.
All plastic all the time.
Okay.
Unless we go to Costco, and then you're getting a box.
You're getting a box, yeah.
And you're trying to figure out how to pack that thing and not spill it all when it comes out.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Final question for you. If I'm not sure if you have collected autographs down through the years, but you have met obviously so many people through basketball. I'm not sure if you've even asked for an autograph, but if you could get somebody's autograph, whose would it be? Like the top autograph that you would love to have?
I don't know at this point in time if I would necessarily ask anybody for an autograph per se. Just the opportunity to meet certain people. I would love to meet Jordan. I mean, that would be obviously the top from a basketball perspective. As much as I rooted against him, being a Knick fan growing up my whole life, and him sending me to sleep in tears on numerous occasions, I'd love to meet him. He's to me the greatest player of all time, and obviously some of that comes down to my age bracket. And again, I think there's a certain number of guys that you can have in that conversation, and then everybody after that is on their own. But Jordan would be a guy that I would love to meet. From an athletics perspective, Jack Nicklaus is a guy I would love to meet. Just to be able to, kind of shake his hand. And I got to meet Arnold Palmer once. I was working the PGA Senior Tour Championship at Ridgewood Country Club in New Jersey. I was in college, and my job was I had one of those CSC security jackets on.
Sure.
A girl that I knew in college, her brother-in-law kind of was a state trooper, and he would do the security stuff. So a bunch of us got to kind of work this event, and I had the driving range, and I started hearing the smack of the ball, and there was nobody out there, and all of a sudden I kept hearing the sound, and it was like the same exact sound each and every time.
Just perfect.
And I kind of like look over my shoulder, and it's Arnold Palmer all by himself.
Wow.
And he's just hitting golf balls, and he's just like striping them. And within 10 minutes, the driving range was packed. Sure. I mean, it was like as soon as they knew that he was there, and so I kind of had to help him get through the rope to get back into the clubhouse or whatever. And that was kind of my brush with Arnold Palmer. But it was just so cool to kind of observe him in that habitat where he's just there by himself hitting golf balls, really not looking to bother anybody or to have attention from anybody, just doing what he does, and that was really, really, really cool.
That's cool. Those are great answers, and that's Toole off the court for tonight. We're going to get Toole back on the court when our next segment gets going, and we're going to set you up for this Wednesday night's playoff game at the North Athletic Complex, St. Francis Terriers of Brooklyn and Robert Morris University of Moon Township, and we're going to play here in Moon Wednesday night, first round of the NEC playoffs, and we'll talk more about that next, right here on ESPN Pittsburgh and the iHeartRadio app, keyword RMU. Don't forget, this Thursday night, Robert Morris opens up the quarterfinal match in the NEC with St. Francis of Brooklyn. The Terriers coming in again with a record of 17-14 overall. They're 9-9 in the NEC, and they are the 5th seed in the conference. Robert Morris, the number 4 seed, coming in with a 16-15 record overall, 11-7 in the Northeast Conference, and you're going to tangle with a bunch of guys who can give you fits. Jalen Jordan is one of them, 15.5 points, 3.5 rebounds a ball game. Glenn Sanabria, one of the better guards in the league over the last 4 years, 12.5 points, 3.2 rebounds, 2.5 assists, steals the ball at a 1+ per game clip, and not to mention Chauncey Hawkins, who comes in at 11.5 points a ball game. They have some of the toughest guards in the league, there's no doubt about it, but even their big people can cause some problems.
Well, they're one of the toughest teams in the league overall. I think when you look at what their identity is as a team, Glenn Breka, their head coach, in the 9 years he's been there, we came in together the same year. I mean, their identity has been that defensive toughness, that get up in the passing lane, deny everywhere, fight you off every screen, make it impossible for you to try and run set offense, really force you into making a one-on-one play. Can you get by your man? Can you get to the rim and then be able to score it over, somebody with size in at the rim? And so it makes it really challenging on how you game plan for them. A lot of times when we game plan for them, we're talking about, how to catch the ball in scoring areas, how to be able to take your space, how to use your screening actions to be able to give yourself an advantage where you can, breathe for a second and be able to make a play or make a shot. And, that's kind of where it starts with St. Francis. And obviously on the other side of the floor, with guys like Jordan and Sanabria, Roselle Hurley has really picked up his game here. Dennis Chellin is a guy who's a double-figure guy on most nights. Those are guys that you have to be weary of. And Sanabria and Jalen Jordan, those guys are two guys that make such incredibly hard shots. They're guys who really make a ton of their plays late in the shot clock. And so if you relax for one moment, they can really, really hurt you. They were 6 for 13 from 3 in the game here 2 weeks ago. Overall, St. Francis was 8 for 24, and those two guys were 6 for 13. And it was, some of them were contested. It's not like they're shooting naked ones, right? A lot of our game plan is not to allow those guys to have, open 3-point shots because they are so good at it, and and then they can create and make plays for their teammates. And I think that those are the things that really challenge your defense, that really make it hard for you each and every possession. And that's what the challenge will be in front of us on Wednesday night. Can we not allow those guys to have an impact, whether it's them scoring or them creating shots for others that they're typically used to having.
The people love gritty basketball. They're in for a treat on Wednesday night. This is going to be a gritty game.
Yeah, of course. There's so much on the line, and you have guys that are trying to extend careers and extend seasons, and that's what's so much fun about the conference tournament. And Sanabria is a 5th-year senior. He's been through the wars. He's been in championship games. He's been in conference tournament games that have been hectic, and he's kind of proved his worth. And we're going to have to do a really good job on him. And like I said, Jordan's a guy who had 18 on us, 2 weeks ago. And like I said, made some really, really tough ones. And we're going to have to make sure those guys are working for every basket they get. And we got to try and figure a way to make them, not as efficient as they're typically used to being.
Let's talk about the matchup in this ball game. You had mentioned how Yaya Evans is playing better. Dennis Chellan has really come on, and Chellan played pretty hard, solid basketball against Robert Morris in that last matchup. Let's talk about some of the matchups out on the floor.
And Chellan's a guy who actually is a recruited walk-on. He's probably one of the best walk-ons in the country. 7.5 points and 5.5 rebounds per game. He can really pass. He can step out and make a three-point shot. He's skilled with his back to the basket. Giannis Mendy and Malik Petway will have to really work to make sure he doesn't get deep post position. Yaya Evans is a guy who's an energy guy. He's extremely long, crashes the glass like crazy. He's always trying to make those winning plays, whether it's keeping a ball alive, whether it's getting a deflection, whether it's denying one of your reversal guys, and he's a lot to handle. So those are front court matchups that we're going to have to be able to make sure that we are physical with, that we're reacting first, that we're hitting first, that we're doing all the things that give us some type of advantage that can allow us to be successful on possessions.
It's the Andy Toole Radio Show. We're live from the Yard here in North Fayette tonight in the Pool City Plaza, and we're talking Robert Morris basketball. The Colonials open up the Northeast Conference Tournament with the game Wednesday night in the quarterfinals against St. Francis of Brooklyn. Tonight's broadcast is being sponsored in part by People's Gas, the official natural gas supplier to Robert Morris University. Obviously, you get to play them at home, which is critical. And, being one of the top 4 seeds, it's really important because you do get a home game. And we know how tough travel is in the Northeast Conference, particularly for Robert Morris, because let's face it, your club is the one that's way out west, and the other teams are scattered about the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, tri-state area.
Yep.
And, basically they have to come to you, so that has to hurt them a bit.
Well, I mean, we'll see. We've seen teams go on the road before in the past and be able to win. Obviously it is hopefully an advantage to be able to be at home, but, you still got to show up and play the game. You still got to be able to perform, execute your formula for 40 minutes. Whether you're at home or on the road, you still got to be able to make some shots. And I think that's, stuff that we've talked about. Obviously it's nice as we prepare, we're able to come back off the road Saturday, be able to get some good days of prep in, be able to have, guys sleep in their own beds. We're on spring break this week, so they can really focus in on, their preparation in basketball right now, which is really nice. It would have been harder, had we played Saturday on the road and come back on Saturday night and then had to gear up and, head back out on the road today or tomorrow morning.
Which is what you did last year.
Which is what we did last year. And that's certainly a challenge. So, it is nice to be able to play the quarterfinal game at home, and then, we'll see what happens with the quarterfinals and where our next destination could be if we're lucky enough to win, or, if we're fortunate enough to host another game. LIU last year as a 4 seed hosted a semifinal game and then had to go on the road for the championship. So you never know how things will play out here in these quarterfinals, and I think, that's one of the exciting things about having them on campuses is that you get that feel, you get that home court environment and advantage where, sometimes you see some of these conference tournaments where, you go to a neutral site and the building's a quarter full and, it just doesn't have the same pop. So, I think it's something the NEC does really well is execute and organize their conference tournament.
All right, let's talk about your ball club going into this game on Wednesday night. Obviously, great to see the Williams brothers combine for those 26 points that they got against Wagner. You need them to continue doing what they're doing.
No, for sure. We need everybody is what we need, and that's something that we've really, tried to consistently remind guys of. Like, you never know, who might be called on or who's going to be needed to be able to make, plays. I think Saturday was a great example. Chris Coleman played the last 4 or 5 minutes of that game because of the lineup they had out there, because of what we needed to do defensively, and he had 4 rebounds or 4 points and 3 rebounds, and they were really critical points in watching the game, and he was locked in, and he was engaged, and he was aggressive, and he really played well. We've had other games where Cam Wilbon stepped up and had 7 and 5. Case in point, the last time we played St. Francis Brooklyn, he had an excellent game. Yep. He was really good defensively. He was really urgent, and so you never know where you're going to get or where you're going to need a little help from somebody, and that's why it's so critical to have everybody in tune with what the game plan is, to be in tune with how we need to execute. And I think that's what these next couple days are going to really be important to make sure that guys understand the importance. But obviously John, Josh, Malik, Charles, those are guys, Yanis, that we need to, Maddie, we need to know they're going to be ready to go, and then everybody else has got to support.
There were times during the season when I'd look out on the court and I'd see a couple of freshmen running around out there. I'm thinking, okay, let's see how many minutes they can give you. But the thing is, no one's a freshman anymore. We know that.
No.
They played a full season of collegiate basketball in the NCAA. Not only that, but the guys you put in are dependable guys. You're talking about two guys that you mentioned, obviously, in Cam Wilbon and Dante Tracy. When they've gotten in there, they've really held up for you.
Yeah, and I think that the biggest thing we try and have them focus on all the time is just their effort and their energy. If you can go out and you can be playing at the effort level that it takes, all the other good stuff just happens from there. And I think that if you go out, you try to score, you go out, you try and get stats, things don't really materialize for you that way. And I think if you go out with just the idea of, I'm going to play as hard as I can for as long as I can, I'm going to try and be in the right spot, I'm going to try and make the right play for my team, good things really seem to happen for you and usually for your team as well.
These guys get along, and this is a close-knit group of basketball players. I know they want to continue this thing.
They do, and as coaches, we'd love to have it continue as well. They've been an enjoyable group to coach, guys that have really, I think, tried to do what they're being asked on a regular basis, and we'd like to see this season go as long as we can.
Yeah, absolutely. It all starts this coming Wednesday night. St. Francis Brooklyn and Robert Morris at the North Athletic Complex. Again, Coach, you had mentioned that in all likelihood you're going to be able to buy a ticket to get into this one, and we want to see people out there at that game.
There's going to be tickets available, so make sure you contact Robert Morris Athletics on how to get your tickets, when you can get your tickets. I don't have all those details. I probably should, but I'm worried about watching film and getting 12 guys ready to go for Wednesday night.
You take care of that, and other folks will take care of the ticket sales. What you can do is go to rmucolonials.com or call the Colonial Ticket Office, and I'm sure that they'll accommodate you as long as supplies last, but you better hurry because, again, limited seating in the temporary building, and, of course, big demand coming up because it is playoff basketball time. It is March Madness of all things, and glad to see Robert Morris in it again this year. They're going to take on the St. Francis Terriers Wednesday night, 7 o'clock. That will be our next broadcast, and we'll talk to you live that night. Jim Elias and I will have the call starting at 6:45 Wednesday night right here on ESPN Pittsburgh.